I don't like these movies.
Get real.
Dude, I saw that movie 20 goddamn times!
Just consume product. I watch my movies.
Having so much fun! And really?
Oh, this movie's too complicated.
Hey, so once again, no smoking in this theater.
Don't try to understand. Feel it.
Hello and welcome to this week's Idle Film Club, your Brain Rot Girlfriend's favourite film podcast. I am Callum.
And I'm Gio.
We're covering a real big ass movie this week, Tenet from 2020 by Christopher Nolan. But before that, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm tired. I'm tired of this movie.
We went to a outdoor screening last night of Romeo and Juliet, didn't we?
We did.
So we got home quite late, but that was fun.
It was.
Felt like I was being bullied by the jocks, though.
Yeah, it was like a human zoo. It was in the middle of a concourse and it's sandwiched between two bars where there was about 1,000 Hindus going on.
Yeah, and you listen to it sort of through headphones.
Yeah, so probably not ideal circumstances.
But we're watching a gimpy teenage girl movie.
Yeah, it was
And there's
an
drunk
experience.
lads, you know.
This movie's shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good, but probably would not do it again.
Being bullied by the cool kids.
Yeah.
I felt like a target with the silly headphones.
Yeah, it did look very gimpy.
It was good though.
It was good.
Fun to see something like that. Speaking of fun movies to watch,
Are we going into Tenet?
I think so.
All I have for you is a word. Tenet. It'll open the right doors, some of the wrong ones too.
I saw this in the cinema. The first film after the pandemic that I went to go see in my hometown. And I didn't know what was going on. It was a bad cinema experience. There was only like 5 people in the cinema, me, my friend, and 3 15-year-old boys
Yeah,
who were bullying me.
Were they?
Yeah.
Once again.
Once again, just get bullied everywhere I go.
Why?
I don't know. I think they're calling me and my friend gay and stuff. And they just weren't paying attention. And
I don't really blame them.
I don't blame them either. But honestly, this happened about half an hour in, and I was like, guys, this is a 2.5 hour movie. Just cut your losses. It was a £2.50 cinema ticket as
Just
well.
leave.
Cut your losses. This isn't the most fun place you can be right now.
Yeah.
Go anywhere else. Why are you sitting through Tenet?
Resorting to bullying complete strangers.
And the sound wasn't good, and I couldn't hear what was going on, and it was very, very long, and I didn't know what was going on at any point in the film when I saw it in the cinema.
I absolutely don't blame you.
It was
I
miserable.
still don't know what's going on. I had about 2 solid days of doing research and I still don't really know.
Yeah, I've watched it 2.5 times this week, twice in full, and once just the first hour.
Yeah, I've probably done it the same, I think.
And
Let's just get our opinions out of the way
yeah,
right off the bat.
I think I think it's a good-looking movie. I think it's ambitious. I think the performances are good. Everything's good, but it is too complicated for its own good. It doesn't work as a film. It's not a film. It's a video essay.
That's exactly what I was going to say, a video essay.
Mike's bring me in.
You really want to know?
He can communicate with the future. Time travel.
No.
Inversion.
It doesn't stop. There's no fun. Well, there is. There's fight scenes, there's car chases.
No fun allowed. No, this movie is not fun to me.
I like the fight scenes and the car chases. I think they're fun, but again, it's in service of a plot that you don't know where we're at, what's going on. And we're not stupid, all right? Don't listen to this and think, oh, go back to Marvel movies. We watch good films. We know what's going on most of the time.
I mean, this isn't an us problem. I don't think
No.
anyone understands this movie.
And if you say you did, then you're a liar. Like the first time you watched it, you're like, yeah, I got it. Like Inception, people were like, Inception's really easy to follow.
You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
I mean, the comparison to Inception is the elephant in the room, I guess, because that has a highbrow concept and a somewhat complicated concept, but
I'd say a complicated plot, but again, it's easy. It's not easy to follow.
the
but
concept is understandable.
It's grasp. You can grasp it. You can hold it. It's tangible.
Hold it as one of your tenets.
Oh god, that is one of my tenets. But yeah,
Oh,
we're going into this. We're raw dogging this with Georgia's 8 pages of notes, and me just vibing.
I spent about, I would say, probably 2 whole days rewatching this movie, pausing it, doing research. I don't claim to know everything about this movie, and there are numerous points where I will say, I don't understand why, for what reason these things happen. I'm a bit brain dead, I can't lie to you. I've put so much time into just researching the plot of this movie that it's
Yeah.
almost incomprehensible that it stands as a film.
Apparently, Robert, you still don't get it. Do you get Tenet?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, you definitely get it more, like when,
I will say I'm very excited to record this podcast, edit it, get it out, and never have to think about this movie
Oh,
again.
fucking hell. You couldn't pay me money to watch this again. I'm done. I'm done. I enjoyed the movie when I watched it. I had literally no idea what was going on.
Oh yeah, so you watched it for the first time this
I'd
week.
never seen it.
Yeah.
But I knew all of the, you can't hear anything they're saying, it makes no sense. I knew all of those gripes going into it. This was my first watch, and I've watched it, as I said, probably twice and a half. It's so unbelievably incomprehensible that I think I enjoyed it, but I don't think it's a good or successful film. I don't think a film should be so prohibitive that you actually have no idea what's going on. I don't think that makes for a well executed or particularly enjoyable movie. I mean, I did like it. I think the performances are excellent and I like the characters, but I just think it gets so bogged down in science and war and history, and it's too much. It's just too much for a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it back to what I said in our Donnie Darko review, which was that you'll really enjoy Donnie Darko and then get to the end and you go, what actually happened? And you're like, oh, I don't actually know what the plot's about. This is you're not like that. You don't forget.
It doesn't stand on its own.
At no
without...
point are you so absorbed that you forget that you don't really know what's going on. At most points you're like, what? Why are they doing this? I don't know what's going on.
It's an absolutely crazy movie.
It is.
And I will say that I respect it a lot more than I like it
Oh yeah,
or enjoy
100%.
it.
It is proper filmmaking.
It really is. And I think Christopher Nolan continues to be ambitious with what he does. Doesn't always necessarily pay off. And even Inception, I very, very, very much like Inception, but it's still kind of dumb in places.
Yeah.
And Christopher Nolan is the definition of a big picture guy.
Yes.
And sometimes that comes at the cost of good dialogue, and he doesn't really understand human beings, I'll say.
See, this is what, again, Inception, I think you have Elliot Page's character, who is the fish out of water, who has to have Inception explained to her.
They say we only use a fraction of our brain's true potential. Now, that's when we're awake. When we're asleep, our mind can do almost anything.
Whereas in this movie, there's no one explaining to you really what Tenet is.
They're always explaining it to the protagonist.
But again,
But
the
he's
protagonist
not-
is so smart
Yeah.
that he doesn't have any follow-up questions. He just gets it.
Yeah. Everyone understands everything at all points.
Yeah.
You get follow-up questions and sort of, okay, so does this mean this? But at no point is anyone ever like...
I mean, very rarely
Lost.
as well. Like when, not to dive into the plot too quickly, but when he has the rule of inversion explained to him, he gets it within 30 seconds. And for some reason, it just computes in his brain. He's like, oh, that's not completely fucked up.
I mean, you can say through the logic of the movie, but he is a CIA agent, so...
So while we're talking about characters and stuff, I'm just going to run down our players in Tenet.
I'm the protagonist.
So we've mentioned this character a lot already. Protagonist, played by J.D. Washington, who is great.
I love him in this. He was in BlacKkKlansman, and he's
Yeah.
excellent in that.
So the protagonist, again, very wanky that he doesn't have a name. I don't like that. I think it's just
It's so annoying.
try hard. But he is a CIA agent before his quote-unquote death, where he fakes his death, and he is enlisted in Tenet after the Kiev Opera House siege. We'll get into what all this means later. Neil, played by Robert Pattinson.
You're gonna love it. You'll see.
He's a member of Tenet. He's the protagonist's handler, and he meets the protagonist in Mumbai. Priya Singh, played by Dimple Kapadia. I hope I'm saying that right.
Cheers. Priya.
Who's an arms dealer in India and works under her husband's alias, and she also works for Tenet. Andre Sater, played by Kenneth Branagh.
I've always had instincts about the future.
He's a terminally ill Russian oligarch who can communicate with the future. Deal with that. He's the big bad of our movie.
He certainly is.
Catherine Barton, played by Elizabeth Debicki,
The drawing has his hold over me.
is Sator's, Andre Sater, we will refer to him as Sater, Sator's wife and mother of their son, and she is an art appraiser. Ives, played by Aaron Taylor-Johnson, is a Tenet military commander.
Our facility's inside an airport security perimeter. It's impregnable.
And Sir Michael Crosby, played by Sir Michael Caine, is a British intelligence officer. And those are basically all the characters you need to know.
There's lots and lots of characters that show up for like one scene or a couple of scenes, but those are sort of the main people that we're going to involve, sort of by name
Yes.
in the plot.
Should we get into the plot? Right.
So how this is going to go, I've made my notes on watching the movie, looking at copious amounts of research. I do not claim to have understood this independently of doing all of this research and citing about 3 different sources to sort of go through it. I'm hoping that there's no sort of major gaps or, untrue things in what I've said. I'm 99% sure that everything is correct, but...
And for what it's worth, we're going to spoil this movie, but it's irrelevant. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend reading the plot before watching it. Genuinely.
Yeah, listen to this podcast and then watch it. You might fucking get more out of it, but a successful movie, you should not have to do research before you watch it. I did want to go into like the palindrome of Tenet and like all that sort of shit, but I just did not have time or the mental this burnt me out. Like, oh my God, it is inconceivably complicated.
It is.
And this is sort of the bare bones of the plot. You ready?
Yes, let's go.
Okay, so the movie opens at a terrorist incident in the Opera House in Kiev.
Ukraine.
Our central protagonist is a CIA agent who we'll refer to as the protagonist. In my notes, he is TP.
Toilet paper.
Makes me laugh every time I see it. Ostensibly, he is there to rescue what they only call the well-dressed man.
And there are no friends at dusk.
You've been made. This siege is a blind for them to vanish you.
The reason he is actually there, which we sort of find out later, is to retrieve 1/9 of an artifact.
Yep.
We will circle back. The protagonist is saved by a reverse bullet shot by a masked figure with a red tag on his backpack during the skirmish and sort of...
I'd say it's more orangey.
Well, there's lots and lots of different parties at play. You've got the Ukrainian National Guard, you've got Russian terrorists, you've got the CIA, you've got fake police.
SWAT team.
This is
fake
just...
SWAT team.
This is the bare bones. Remember the blue tag on the backpack.
Well, you said it was red.
It is red. Remember the red tag on the backpack.
Orange.
Toilet paper is kidnapped and tortured by evil Russians and takes a fake cyanide pill. Title card.
How are you counting on this? Death. CIA is you.
Yes.
He does not know that it is fake.
He loves his country.
He loves America. The protagonist wakes up from a medically induced coma after having his teeth pulled out.
Yes.
The pill was a fake, we come to learn. This is all delivered by exposition, by the way. And he was basically tested to see whether or not he would give up his colleagues, and he passed.
The man also says not everyone has passed.
He says something to the effect of, like, people say they would, but when they're in the moment, they don't, no one knows kind of thing.
I think he says, like, everyone thinks they're going to run into the burning building until they feel the heat.
Exactly.
We all believe we'd run into the burning building. But until we feel that heat, we can never know. You do.
So we learn sort of through this exposition dialogue that he has been recruited by Tenet to fight a quote-unquote Cold War. And he is currently
a Cold War, cold as ice.
Yeah, that is literally what he says.
There's a Cold War, cold as ice. to even know its true nature is to lose.
And is living in an offshore windmill for some reason. The internet tells me that it's to keep him out of the way of his future self.
Oh, possibly.
Not sure. So the protagonist arrives in a lab and meets Laura, who is
Yes.
played by Clemence Posey
Yeah.
from Harry Potter,
Harry Potter.
Friends with Miles Kane. I don't really know anything else about her. She asserts that there is to be no small talk to maintain secrecy and that they must only communicate through expository dialogue.
Yeah.
Tenet is trying essentially to prevent World War III, which is apparently worse than nuclear holocaust.
Is that the line? I thought it was, we're trying to prevent World War III, something, it's worse than that. And then he goes nuclear holocaust, and she says it's worse than that.
Yeah. So this World War III is like
the end.
Big deal.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent World War III.
Nuclear holocaust.
No. Something worse.
Laura gives him what is known as an inverted bullet. Again, I'm skipping a lot of... It's impossible to get through this plot without...
We'd be sitting here for 4 hours.
Yeah,
if we went into
literally.
detail.
Laura gives him what is known as an inverted bullet. The protagonist fires the gun in reverse. One bullet travels forwards through time and one travels back. So this inversion is sort of the crux of the movie. The reversed bullet is inverted and its entropy runs backwards. They believe this is caused by inverse radiation triggered by nuclear fission.
Remember that.
Remember
maybe.
that. It's not that important, but... Tenet doesn't know how the bullets are made, but they do know that the bullets are from the future.
So just to clear this up, Tenet is an organisation
Yeah.
to stop this Armageddon.
Exactly. So we see sort of a little demonstration of how reverse entropy works. But basically, the bullet is traveling backwards through time as it is inverted. So to the protagonist, he is dropping the bullet, but to the bullet, he is picking it up.
Yeah.
So we see this sort of displayed in a video, sort of, well, she had like a video camera, which sort of shows the forward and backwards entropy. And to pick up the bullet, you have to have imagined dropping it. Don't try to understand, feel it.
Don't try to understand it. Feel it.
Oh, fucking hell.
They quote that word for word in the movie, and that is sort of the...
Yeah, that is a very not subtle...
Yes, exactly.
...note to the audience.
It says go on instinct. So he's...
Oh, right, okay.
She literally says you just have to have imagined dropping it.
Okay.
So the protagonist says that the metal composition of the bullets can tell him where they were manufactured. Laura basically says that if you can then invert bullets, they believe that basically anything could be inverted.
Yeah.
And if they are playing with nuclear, an inverted nuclear weapon could affect the past as well as the future. Laura is never seen again.
Yeah, that's her done. Where are we going to in our globe trotting adventure now?
We watched sort of the behind the scenes stuff, and Chris Nolan sort of said that because it is a world war, he wanted to showcase a lot of different locations. And
I think it's also the fact he says it's basically a spy film. You know, all those Bond and I don't know, Indiana Jones, things like that, where they hop around the world, globe-trotting adventure, globe-trotting adventure.
So the protagonist heads to Mumbai, where he has tracked the origin of the inverted bullets through the metal composition.
Yeah.
He meets Neil, who is played by Rob Pattinson.
Yeah.
Looking very, very handsome with his bleached blonde hair. And Neil facilitates the meeting with an arms dealer named Sanjay Singh. Now, Neil knows a lot about the protagonist somehow, and they discuss the plan to bungee jump into the dealer's apartment, so Sanjay's apartment, and basically just flirt with each other for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
It's bungee jumpable.
I don't think bungee jumpable is a word.
It may not be a word, but it may be your only way out of that place.
The protagonist asks Sanjay after they sort of bungee jump in. It's got a cool action sequence. And we sort of saw in the behind the scenes that they did a lot of their own stunts and stuff, which was, you know.
Because he's an what is it? He's an ex-football player.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
JD Washington.
So the protagonist asks Sanjay sort of at gunpoint who supplied the reverse bullet, and his wife, Priya, reveals herself as a member of Tenet. So she reveals herself as a member of Tenet by saying it's the Tenet he holds himself by or something.
Yeah.
So they both sort of recognise that she's with Tenet. She says that she is the arms dealer and goes under a male alias.
Yes. There are lots of feminist themes in this movie.
This is your operation.
A masculine front in a man's world has its uses.
She says that the person the protagonist is looking for is a Russian oligarch called Andrei Sater, who, as we said, will be referred to as Sater. A Russian oligarch, if you didn't know, which I didn't, I know fuck all about Russia or the Soviet Union, which is probably why this research took me so long.
Georgia's just learned that the USSR has fallen.
Russian oligarchs made their fortunes quickly in the 1990s, essentially after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when state-owned industries were basically privatized. So they often have a lot of like significant political influence or control as they like own large sectors of the economy. So like gas, oil, metals, like the big boys.
And again, isn't that just so great? Isn't that so great? Isn't it so great that the union collapsed? Anyway, go on.
So Sater made his money through plutonium. So that's sort of a more scary degree of the gas and oil, sort of, because we're going nuclear.
I'm sure in 1985 you can get plutonium at any grade corner store, but in 1955 it's a little hard to come by.
Gonna explain that one?
That's from Back to the Future.
Ah.
Look, all we need is a little plutonium.
Oh, I'm sure that in 1985, plutonium is available in every corner drugstore, but in 1955, it's a little hard to come by.
So Priya states that the rounds were ordinary before they reached Sater. So
Yes,
he's
she's not inverting the bullets.
She is not. And she believes that Sater is a broker between the present and the future.
Yes, and they explain it in a stupid way that makes no sense, where they're like, well, we all communicate with the future with emails and text.
It makes no fucking sense, but again, this is a crux of the movie. Basically, anything that is public information is regarded as what they call posterity. So anything that's on public record, credit cards.
You're always communicating with the future.
It's just a case of whether the future can speak back.
Exactly that. And it appears to be that Sator is speaking with the future.
He can communicate with the future.
We all do, don't we? Emails, credit cards, texts, anything that goes into the record speaks directly to the future.
The question is, can the future speak back?
So this concept of posterity is important. It comes up a lot, but essentially posterity is just leaving a trace with things that are traceable. That's how I understand it. This scene sort of concludes with Priya advising to seek out Sir Michael Caine,
What's his name? Crosby.
Sir Michael Crosby, a British intelligence officer.
You've done the big one. I'm going to quickly catch you up, everyone. Protagonist gets saved by an inverted bullet. He finds out what that is. Bullet traveling backwards through time. The bullet itself that was shot was made in India, so he goes to seek out the person who made it, who says, this Russian oligarch, that's where it is. I just provide him with the bullets. He inverts them.
Yeah.
Go speak to this British intelligence officer. He'll know what's going on. That's where we are.
Cool. So the protagonist goes to meet Michael for afternoon tea to get intel on Sater.
It's a good scene. I like this scene a lot.
I'm sorry, I started without you.
It's okay, I'll catch up.
He's so rude to the wait staff for
I
what
like
reason?
it.
It's
Because
based, but like...
I think I genuinely get the vibe that he is racist, right? Like, they are racist.
Yeah.
Just in the fact that it's like high snobbery London type.
Yeah.
And the minute he goes in, I think they instigate it by being like, well, do you mean Sir Michael Crosby?
May I help you, sir?
I'm Mr. Crosby's lunch.
I presume you mean Sir Michael Crosby's lunch.
Presume away.
If you follow me.
I didn't pick up on that.
He's like, I have a lunch with Mr. Crosby. And they're like, oh, I assume you mean
Oh.
Sir Michael Crosby. I think that's why he's so shitty, because it's just like, oh, these fucking white people.
Yeah. I mean,
and he is so badass.
he is
The protagonist.
amazing.
Because he comes over, Michael Caine's already eating, and he just goes, "Oh, I'll just have what he's having." And the waiter's like, "Oh, I'll get the waiter over to take your
And
order."
he's like, "No,
just pass it on."
Yeah, it's
And
like,
then sits
okay.
down. Yeah.
It's very BDE. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So what do we learn from Sir Michael Crosby?
Sir Michael Crosby says that Andrei Sater is from a Russian closed city, Stalsk 12.
Yes,
which
this
is used,
very important, by the way.
which is used for underground nuclear tests.
Yes.
And again, this is probably a scene that lasts 5 minutes.
If that, maybe 3.
And we learn a lot of information. So they talk about how Andrei Sater is actually giving like fake intel or crappy intel to the British intelligence. So Sater was commissioned by the future to look for scattered plutonium in the ruins of Stalsk 12 and was left a letter from the future stating that he had been chosen to take control of the region.
See, when was this? Was this pre or post money?
This is pre-money.
Right.
Because
he got his money from the plutonium.
He got his money from the future.
Cool.
They basically helped him take
become an
control.
oligarch.
Exactly. On the date of the Opera House siege in Kiev, there was also an explosion in Stalsk 12.
Yeah, this is a throwaway line that
is very
sums
important.
up the plot.
Yeah.
So.
Michael advises that the best way to get through Sater is through his wife, Andre. No.
His wife, Andre? Whoa.
His wife, Kat. And Michael provides him with a confiscated Goya painting sourced from a man named Arepo.
You're carrying a Goya in a Harrods bag.
It's a fake by a Spaniard named Arepo.
Now, Arepo and Kat were close, and one of the 2 paintings that were confiscated, these 2 fake paintings, was sold to Sater by Kat.
As a real
yes.
painting.
So he was basically defrauded out of $9 million or whatever the currency is to buy a fake Goya painting.
Without him knowing, right?
Yeah, he didn't know. So what you need to know...
Abridged version. The Russian oligarch who is inverting the bullets was raised in a abandoned nuclear test site called Stalsk 12. There was an explosion in Stalsk 12 the same day as the Opera House siege.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the movie, and he bought a painting from his wife that his wife's friend faked. And there's also another one. So the protagonist is now going to try and use this fake painting to get to the wife so he can get closer to Sater.
Again, literally 3 minutes
just meet
of the
in
movie.
a coffee shop, could they?
They met at afternoon
But
tea.
no, I mean, like in any other movie, I'm going to get to his wife. Well, I know she gets her morning coffee from this coffee shop. Try and look sexy and maybe go on a date with her.
He does say something like...
Oh, she really likes this band. Make sure you're wearing this band t-shirt so you can strike up a conversation. But in this, it's like there's a Goya painting. There's 2 of them, actually. One of them's... They're both fake. And actually, they were made by her friend. And it's like, why? Why do we need to know who made these paintings?
Arepo gets brought up for about an hour of the movie and then it's just never mentioned
let's
again.
go on. So he is going to take this painting to the wife of the oligarch, who is inverting bullets.
Yes. The protagonist meets Kat, claiming that he got the painting from Arepo. Again, this is a very abridged version of their conversation, but this is essentially what you need to know.
So where did you say you acquired this drawing?
Tomas Arepo.
They have dinner and we learn sort of background information about Sater and Kat. We learn that Sater knows that the painting is fake and uses it as leverage against her, though she does claim that she didn't know it was a forgery when she bought it.
Because she is an art appraiser, so she'd lose her job. Or I think she'd get in a lot of trouble for that shit, right?
Basically, what happened is she got too close to the guy named Arepo, who was making the fakes. So she mistakenly appraised it as being real because she was too close to him. And it's sort of... they weren't...
but she knew it was fake, right?
No, she didn't. She was like, I failed, basically.
Oh, right.
So you might
This
be
guy
able...
scammed her.
Yeah, basically.
Right.
And he...
Because she was sucking his dick.
Well, that's sort of the
He'd have to be
implication.
on stilts.
But...
She's 6'3".
She is a beautiful...
Yeah, she's a goddess.
Amazing. Like 6'3" and she's wearing heels. Basically, he says that if she leaves him, he will notify the police and she will go to prison because it's illegal. So that's essentially...
They have a son together.
Yeah.
He threatened me with police, prison, the works.
What else do we learn in this conversation?
So Sata basically says that, as we said, she didn't know that the painting was a forge, or she claims not to. On their recent holiday in Vietnam, Sata tells her that if she ever left him, that she would never see her son again. So he's using this fake painting as leverage for her to stay, basically.
Yes.
After their argument, Kat saw a woman dive off the back of
Well,
the
she
yacht
leaves the boat with her son.
after having left
Yes.
with her son, and Kat says that she felt jealous of the freedom that the mistress
Yeah.
has. Remember this?
Yes.
And when we got back, I glimpsed some other woman diving off the boat and he'd vanished. I never felt such envy.
The protagonist offers her a chance at betrayal by stealing or proposing to steal the painting to secure her freedom. If there's no painting, there's no way to trace
Yes.
that it's a fake. When they're interrupted by Sata's thugs, they fight and the protagonist beats someone's up with a cheese grater.
Yeah, the protagonist wins this fight against like 10
And she's
Russian
like,
henchmen.
you won't get out of this. And he's like, bet.
Yeah, he's like that.
So that's the
And
end
he
of that
walks out.
scene.
He's so sick.
He's
I love
so
him.
good in this. He's perfectly cast. He has the right amount of swagger,
Yeah.
but he can play the suave. He's great. So that's the end of that scene.
So, Kat has a painting. She faked it. Sata's holding her son for ransom, basically. She's trapped in a relationship she doesn't want to be in. Is that all the key information from that scene?
Pretty much. Kat assumes that the painting is being held at a free port in Oslo because Sata visits it 3 or 4 times a year, I think she says.
Yes.
If you, like me, didn't know what a free port was,
I didn't either.
a free port is basically a place that rich clients can go and store and view their paintings, but not get taxed on them, and they are not subject to customs check.
Isn't capitalism great?
Yeah, so it's just basically
How
rich
to
people
avoid
shit.
paying tax.
Neil goes undercover and gets taken
Neil.
on a Neil gets taken on a tour around the facility to
Yes.
investigate. Ostensibly, he's a rich client in his sexy double-breasted suit.
See, can we bring up the costumes in this bit yet? Because there's a segment in the behind the scenes about the costume design, and it is very, very cool. If you can see, watch it, because it's one of those you don't think it's that an important a part of.
Oh, it's so
but it's so important
important.
for the characterization in a movie that's this plot heavy.
Yeah.
The characterization is entirely through performance and
The
costume.
yeah, and the costumes are like the suits and
Yeah,
the
so in-
tailoring. Oh, it's
Like,
so
when you
good.
first meet Neil, he's wearing like a scruffy white linen suit in India.
That's so hot. I'm
It
sorry,
is,
that
and it's
linen
like,
suit.
It's slightly like stained and off color.
Mm.
And in this scene, when he's pretending to be like a rich person trying to store tax-free art in this free port, he's wearing like a double-breasted suit with like a smart tie. But again, the costume designer said, it still has personality. It's like patterned subtly.
It's like checkered, so
Yeah,
it sort
yeah.
of looks a bit like worn,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
though
yeah.
it's very like pristine.
When he goes posing as a wealthy businessman, he takes on a different persona. Yet a little bit of Neil still peeks through. So you've got a double-breasted suit, which is perfectly tailored and everything. But if you look at the fabric, there's a playfulness to it.
Oh, also Michael Caine gives.
Oh yeah, he makes a snotty comment about, I can recommend you a tailor.
Well, he gives him the British intelligence bank card.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just like, go get a better suit.
Yeah, and he's like, nah, I'm
if you
good.
want to look like a multi-millionaire, may I suggest you don't wear Brooks Brothers?
So Neil basically, in his sexy suit, gets taken on a tour around the facility and investigates the haven for fire precautions.
Yes.
In preparation for stealing the painting by crashing a transport plane into the Freeport's back entrance or something, so that they can basically go into the Freeport and steal the artwork.
Yes. Don't they crash the plane into a plane hangar? Or they don't crash it into the Freeport.
Yeah,
They crash it into a hangar to distract.
Oh, as a distraction.
As a
yeah,
distraction,
got you.
yeah.
But what I sort of didn't mention is that the offer to sort of steal the painting is a sort of quid pro quo agreement that I'll help you, you help me sort of
What,
thing.
between Kat and
the protagonist. So he sort of offers to do this for her under the guise that she will help him get close to Sata,
yes.
basically. So the plane, obviously, this is jumping quite far, but the plane successfully crashes into the building, but their attempts to steal the painting are thwarted when they are accosted by 2 masked antagonists exiting out of a strange revolving door.
Yes.
This is where shit.
This is what I'm really not looking forward to talking about. I was like, I'm
What,
so on
the
board
whole
for
rest
this.
of the movie?
Yeah, up until this point, I'm so on board with this movie.
Yeah.
And now we're about to go
We
like,
fall off the edge of the earth, sort of thing.
oh my god.
So yeah, this is where shit really starts to get complicated. So the protagonist and Neil work their way through. There's a whole subplot with like halide gas and holding your breath and all this shit.
Because
But
the fire security in the Freeport isn't sprinklers, it pumps gas in, which strips all the oxygen out of the room. So they give the staff 10 seconds to get out of the room.
If I did, we'd suffocate.
What about the staff?
Halide only fills the vaults. They just have to get into either corridor, and there is a 10-second warning.
At least you give them 10 seconds.
And the alarm goes off when Neil is having this tour because of the plane crash.
the rooms where the paintings are get filled with halide gas, but there's other little corridors that once you get into them. So, and Neil's like a locksmith.
Yes, he's a master locksmith.
Yeah, so this is obviously, this all happens, but again, it's not really crucial to the plot. So the protagonist and Neil enter two parallel rooms through their respective doors. There's a cute little scene where he's like, you want me to help you with that? And he unlocks the door for him.
Yes.
This movie's very homoerotic and I love it.
George is trying to find anything to enjoy out of this
Yeah,
movie.
literally.
So she larps that they're gay.
Yeah. The protagonist and Neil enter two parallel rooms sort of
Yes.
through their respective doors. They see obviously the two masked antagonists coming out of this revolving door. There's basically a cool reverse action sequence, which you told me even when we were watching it, that it's actually not footage in reverse. It is choreographed action sequences.
It was all very well and good for us to struggle with the concept, but to struggle with the action, one of my first thoughts upon finishing the script was, this is going to be the toughest stunt coordinator job George Cottle ever had.
And watching...
Yeah, the behind the scenes is crazy when you learn how they did it.
I thought the footage was reversed, but you can actually, when you know, you can tell, and it's so much better.
So the protagonist is fighting a master sailor.
And so is Neil.
And
They're
so is
just in
Neil.
sort of
Different
glass
areas,
separated
yes.
rooms.
And the masked person is going backwards in time, but still fighting the protagonist. It's very cool. You have to watch it to understand.
Yeah, the protagonist, he sort of gets the better of the assailant, and before he can shoot him, Neil sort of comes in and is like, don't shoot him.
Yes. Because
Remember this.
Neil is currently with Neil's fighting person.
He runs off, I think.
He
or...
throws him to the ground and then leaves him and runs back to the,
Yeah.
the protagonist.
For all this, the painting wasn't even in the vault.
And you're forgetting that the master assailant the protagonist was fighting goes backwards in time.
Yes, he runs backwards through the door.
Yeah. Okay, so here's what went on at the Oslo Freeport. God, the abridged version. My brain. Yeah, so Neil goes to the Freeport to try and steal the painting. He's under the guise of a rich person wanting to use the Freeport. He finds out the security precautions, which is this halcyon gas, is it?
Halide.
Halide gas. And then he plans a
Bank
heist. A heist to get the painting where he crashes a 747 plane into a building that sets off an alarm that means that
they can sneak in.
The staff all leave the room because it's out of oxygen and they can sneak in, but they get thwarted by master assailants traveling backwards through time.
And they come out of a strange revolving...
Yeah, they come out of a strange revolving door and get sucked backwards.
And essentially this was all for nothing because the painting's
painting
not
wasn't even there. Next scene.
What happened to the other guy? Took care of him.
So, the protagonist and Neil have another flirtatious debrief, and the protagonist goes back to Mumbai to once again meet up with Priya for another plot recap, in case you were understandably confused by what has just happened. She basically explains that the revolving door is called a turnstile. And
Important term, remember.
Yeah, the turnstile is, again, another crux. This device has been given to Andre by the future for an unknown reason, but it allows people to invert themselves and travel backwards through time.
So not only can objects be inverted, like bullets and weaponry, but people themselves can be inverted.
Exactly. And this means that the two people they encountered in the vault were actually the same person. One of them was moving forwards through time and the other one backwards.
Yes.
So we learn, again, this is complicated, it makes no sense, but you just have to go with it. We also learn that Sata sabotaged the CIA rescue in Kiev, and he was trying to obtain plutonium-241, which was picked up by a division of the Ukrainian National Police.
Yes. The point of the scene is to turn out there's turnstiles that Andre has. That's been given to him for the future to invert people.
Yeah, that's just basically explaining
Yes.
what we just saw in the previous scene.
And that in the previous scene, there were the two master sailors were the same person, one travelling forwards, one travelling backwards.
Yes, which is why I just got confused.
Yes, Neil was fighting the forwards
Yeah.
one, and the protagonist was fighting the inverted one.
Mm-hmm. So the protagonist asks Kat to introduce him to Sator and is invited to a dinner. There's a whole thing around this, but essentially he gets invited to the dinner where Sator asks him if he has slept with Kat, to which he responds, not yet.
Yeah.
They make a tense conversation and agree to meet on his boat.
He's basically like, how would you like to die? And the protagonist goes, oh, and he says, you picked the wrong business.
Yeah, there's nothing more satisfying than seeing a man try and claw his own balls out of his throat or something.
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
slit your throat and shove your balls in there. Like,
and then
whoa.
the protagonist plays it cool and is just like, do you like opera?
Do you like opera?
So he's
referencing the Kiev siege.
Yeah, so he's...
Which we have just learnt was to obtain plutonium...
241.
241.
In a scene that happens after the dinner, Sator serves the painting to Kat on a platter.
Yes.
He says that instinct told him to remove the painting from the vault and that he often gets instincts from the future.
Yeah.
Rest assured, instinct told me to remove it from the vault. I've always had instincts about the future. That's how I built this life. You'll no longer value.
When we
Real
get
subtle, bruv.
When we get into the film more, we'll understand that it's literally that. The protagonist curries favour with Andre aboard the catamaran by sort of sweet-talking him.
This scene is so pointless, bruv.
And then saving him from drowning when Kat basically lets go of his harness.
Why not just make him choke at dinner, or she poisons him or something? And why is
Can't
the
even
whole
hear what they're saying anyway.
The catamaran scene is so annoying.
Again, for a 2.5 hour movie, just cut this out.
Yeah, find a better way to do this.
Basically, we have to get to the point where Sator owes him a favour.
Yeah. Yes.
That is
or he proves his trust.
Yes,
that
exactly.
he's not trying to kill Sator.
Yeah. So Sator expresses that he does not want to feel indebted to the protagonist for saving his life, to which the protagonist suggests that he helps him steal the plutonium-241.
What's his guise here?
I can't think what the guise he's going for is. I can't remember, to be
Because does he know he's
honest.
part of Tenet at this point?
No. Later, he makes a reference to Tenet.
Yeah, 'cause he
and
says-
he plays it off as if he's not involved in it. So
cool.
I know
I
that...
can't remember the guys
No,
that
I
he's
can't
going
either.
under for
It
Sator.
doesn't matter. It's not important.
Is it ex-CIA maybe?
Yeah.
Because he said they met at don't bother. Don't worry. It's pointless. Doesn't matter. Let's go. Push on.
Sator explains his backstory and talks about his youth in the nuclear facility in Stalsk 12, where he found literally a message from the future. It's a letter. A horrible and egregious scene of domestic violence ensues, where Sator asserts, "If I can't have you, no one can."
Yes, pointless plot point. Classic Christopher Nolan trying to bring romance into it. Doesn't make sense.
I
Doesn't
mean,
need it.
romance,
Next.
I wouldn't say.
Well, just like
yeah, I know.
that whole
Human side. He's not good at that.
Again, when
He's an
I think we're
alien.
going to go watch Interstellar next week. But when we do, George hasn't seen it, but that is another movie where it's like stick to the science.
Yeah, he is not good at writing.
No.
He's good in. To be fair, Inception is really good at that, I think.
Yeah, but Marion Cotillard carries that movie in terms of the human performances.
Well, no, I think Leo's good.
Oh yeah, Leo. That relationship is really good. Anyway,
So the protagonist witnesses, while he's sort of skulking around the boat, a shipment of inverted gold bars being delivered on board and gets caught. So the gold bars are basically how he's being paid from the future
Yeah.
and how he amassed his fortune.
Yeah.
The future is basically providing him with the means to become powerful so that he can
Yes.
do their bidding, basically. Sator gives him an inverted bar as payment for the assist in smuggling plutonium.
How do I contact you?
You don't.
How do you advance me the funds?
Handle the plutonium better than that.
That is just, I mean, there's not really much to recap with that,
no.
but
So Sator and the protagonist now become sort of fake colleagues in doing bad things, like getting the plutonium.
yeah. So the protagonist and Neil stage a trailer set piece heist.
Oh, is this the car chase?
Yeah, so
Okay.
So the protagonist and Neil steal what they believe to be a case of plutonium, is the long and short of it. However, it turns out to be a part of the artifact. Now, we'll discuss what the artifact is later, but it's the MacGuffin of the movie.
Yes. When you talk about Armageddon, it's caused by the artifact.
Yeah, so this is basically what the movie's central... Well, yeah, it's a MacGuffin. There's no other way to describe it. Yeah, so the opera siege, this artifact is in play there as well. So this is what they stole from the... Again, very confusing, but...
Keep up.
Keep up.
We've got an hour and a half of this movie left.
They're shocked to discover that the radio chatter is in fact not Estonian, which Neil can speak.
Awesome.
But it is in reverse.
I can't understand this. You said you spoke Estonian. It's not Estonian. It's backwards.
And now we learned from the behind the scenes that the reverse dialogue is not the dialogue reverse. They phonetically reverse the dialogue.
Or Sator is speaking, as an Englishman speaking in a Russian accent.
Yeah.
So he's learning how to speak in a Russian accent backwards.
Crazy.
It's ridiculous.
For fights, for running, and yes, for speaking. Sato has a Russian accent, and to speak in reverse in a Russian accent at pace, at length, while fighting and walking backwards is unquestionably a challenging thing for an actor to do.
I think he plays off Russian quite well, though.
Yeah, I think
I thought he was, part Russian.
What, Kenneth Branagh?
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't seen him in anything before.
You've seen him in Harry Potter.
Who is he in Harry Potter?
He's the schmarmy guy, right?
The smarmy guy?
The smarmy guy who's like a celebrity
There's
wizard.
Oh, is that him?
I think it's Kenneth Branagh, isn't it?
Lockhart?
Yeah, it's a Lockhart Kenneth Branagh.
It might be. Anyway, this is all taking place in a car. There's a tense action scene involving a fire truck, some trucks. There are some there are some Ukrainians, there are some Russians, there are some
police.
There's some firefighters. There's a lot of people.
Well, this takes place in Estonia, in Tallinn.
Estonia.
This is the first Hollywood movie to shoot in Tallinn.
Which is kind of cool. They basically then, throughout this car chase, encounter an inverted car.
Yes,
so this is
silver car.
So this is a car with reverse entropy, so it's operating backwards. Inverted Andre has a non-inverted cat held at gunpoint.
You can tell he's inverted because he's wearing a mask.
We'll get to that later, but she is not wearing a mask and he is wearing an oxygen mask, and so is the driver. And he threatens to kill her unless the package is returned to him that they have stolen. Sator then gets out of the car after having been thrown the case in the unmanned inverted car to crash before the protagonist saves her. I mean, yeah, I really, really do take issue with the way that Kat's character is treated in this movie. I don't like it at all. I understand the emotional payoff at the end, but I don't know, that poor woman is...
There's always a threat of violence.
Yeah, and I don't like that at all. I think it's absolutely unnecessary, and I think this guy is evil enough, and I don't think you need that. I don't like it. Anyway, so that's the end of the car chase scene. What you need to know from that is that there's an inverted silver car there, and Satan now has the plutonium.
Yes. Or does he?
Ooh. Inverted Sator takes Kat and the protagonist, he captures them again to another freeport with another turnstile. So this is the
freeport in Tallinn.
In Tallinn. This is the second time that we've seen a turnstile. So as far as we know in the logic of the movie, there was
we've seen two so far.
We've seen two, yeah. Sator and Kat are inverted. We know this because they're wearing the oxygen masks, and the protagonist is on the other side of the room. So
the regular side that's moving forwards in time.
Whereas Kat and Andre Sator are moving backwards in time. He asked the protagonist where the artifacts is, as it wasn't in the case, he says, it wasn't in the BMW. And it's like, oh, thanks for the product placement. We had to fund this $200 million movie somewhere.
The car! The BMW! I left it in the BMW!
Check this is real.
So, yeah, Andre and Kat are moving back. The protagonist is moving forward. He asks the protagonist where the artifact is, as it wasn't in the case, and reverse shoots Kat in the stomach as retaliation for the deception. We learned from Laura earlier that being shot by an inverted bullet is really dangerous. So
She has 3 hours to live.
essentially, they say that later, but the protagonist said he left it in the glove box, and a forward time Sator arrives and holds him at gunpoint. So we've got the backwards time Sator holding Kat hostage, and the forward time Sator then comes and holds the protagonist at gunpoint once again. Commander Eves, who's played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and his troops arrive as summoned by Neil. Neil is like, I'll call the cavalry.
Yeah.
Sit tight. Sit tight, I'm calling the cavalry. What cavalry?
And then both the forward and backward Sator gets backed into the turnstiles.
Yes.
Where he then pisses off to travel into the past. We then see the scene replayed from Sator's point of view in reverse, and he's communicating through a walkie-talkie, but you see obviously him speaking in reverse and then vice versa when we see it from Sator's point of view. Ives and his squadron are soldiers from the future working for Tenet. And that's the end of that scene.
Right, plot recap. There's a truck carrying the plutonium.
Yeah.
Neil and the protagonist set up this wacky little chase scene.
In collaboration with Sator.
And then they steal the plutonium and then try and steal it from Sator and not give it back to him. And then Sator from the future is travelling in an inverted car, holds Kat hostage, threatens to shoot her if they don't get the plutonium. He throws it. Turns out there was nothing in the package, and they have a conversation through time and inverted in the turnstile where Kat gets shot, and the plutonium ends up back in the hands of... Because it was in the glove box, right? Oh no, it turns out he lied.
This is just a ridiculous thing that isn't ever addressed and doesn't make sense. But Alan Taylor Johnson's squad turns up and pushes Andre back through time. And they work for Tenet. So that's what you need to know from that scene.
Cool.
Again,
and so the plutonium is still in the car, or it's somewhere.
We don't know where it is.
Okay, we don't know where it is at
It's
this point.
somewhere.
But the protagonist lied about where its whereabouts.
Yeah, so Neil returns and the protagonist accosts him, demanding to know how Satan knew about the ambush.
Yes.
He thinks that Neil is a mole.
Yes.
He knew every move we made. Every one of them. Somebody talked. Who was it? Was it you?
The answer is posterity. Again, this concept, but a car chase of that magnitude stays on record. So basically, he knew that this car chase was going to happen because you can't get away with something like this not being sort of held.
You can't get away with a heist.
Exactly. Ives, the commander, further explains that Sator is running a quote-unquote temporal pincer movement.
Yes.
And I've quoted exactly what he says here. Half his team move forward through the event, he monitors them, and then attacks at the end, moving backwards, knowing everything. I still don't really...
Again, it's a paradox, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, you just... That is how it works, and you just have to accept that.
Don't try to understand it. Feel it.
The medics say that Kat has 3 hours left to live, and the protagonist comes up with the idea to invert everyone so that he can recover the artifact, and Kat will have been just shot with a standard bullet, not an inverted bullet.
So that he learns about temporal pincer movement and is like, let's just do that. Let's just do that for the rest of the movie, basically. He's like, let's go back through time, get the artifact, save Kat.
So that
Bish, bash, bosh.
Yeah. A forward moving person shot by a backwards moving bullet is very dangerous.
Yes, so
but
he
if
needs
they
to
invert
invert her.
everyone, she will be a backwards time person with a backwards time bullet. Commander Wheeler, who I discovered yesterday, is played by Fiona Dourif, which was cool.
Yes. Daughter of Brad Dourif, voice of Chucky.
Yeah, love him. King. Commander Wheeler gives the protagonist the lowdown on inversion. 3 golden rules. You must supply your own air, as non-inverted air won't pass through the membrane of inverted lungs, which is why we see everyone that's inverted wearing oxygen masks. It makes no sense, but go with it. Don't come into contact with your normal self, so no physical contact with your
forward moving self.
Yeah.
Because that will lead to, what's he say?
Annihilation.
Annihilation, yeah.
Number 1 rule, don't come into contact with your forward self. It's the whole point of these barriers and protective suits.
Oh, we don't have time.
Well, if your particles come into contact...
What?
Annihilation.
That would be bad, right?
And the physics of the world, when you are inverted, is inversed.
Yes, so...
Remember this.
Yes. Plot recap. what Georgia said.
We learn about a temporal pincer movement.
Yeah.
The protagonist thinks Neil is the rat, but we learn that...
How could a man that handsome be a rat?
Exactly. So the protagonist enters the turnstile and travels backwards in time. He drives the silver car we saw driving backwards in the last car chase. We then see, from the protagonist's inverted point of view, the heist happen in reverse. So we see the scene that we just saw reversed from the perspective of backwards moving time. So the silver car flips and dips, but in reverse, whereas now this is actually forward moving time. And there are some really cool intricacies, because this is the first time that the protagonist has been inverted, and we are viewing everything from the viewpoint of the protagonist. So this is the first time that we're experiencing inversion firsthand. So I think this is done well. I will say that, because I think, again, it's delivered so quickly and in such throwaway dialogue that it's hard to follow. But, you know, you get the sort of first-hand experience of inversion. We then see, during the inverted heist, because there's a lot of throwing the orange box between cars, we then see the forwards moving protagonist throw himself as the backwards moving protagonist the orange box.
Yes.
The protagonist crashes his car as he did in normal time, and Sator sets the car on fire with him inside. But remember that physics work in reverse in the inverted timeline, I guess. The protagonist wakes up hypothermic from the burns as physics work in reverse.
Why add another thing to this?
It's so complicated. He's in a shipping container heading to the free port in Oslo because they know there's a turnstile there to then uninvert themselves.
So they're still travelling back in time.
They're still travelling back in time. So everyone at this point is inverted. The aim of this is to secure the box and get Kat better.
Mm-hmm.
They're travelling to the free port to re-invert themselves to go back to forwards moving time.
We found another machine.
A week ago, where?
Oslo.
That facility's inside an airport security perimeter. It's impregnable.
It wasn't last week. We're going in.
We learned that apparently Sator has the artifact. Somehow. Okay. I still don't get how or where he got it from. I rewatched it to see if I could see it. I couldn't. Apparently, it's a contentious point that it's never... The internet has a problem with it, apparently. From what I understand, I might have been missing something, but I tried to rewatch it and I couldn't fucking see. I think it's just not explained.
Okay.
Neil gives Kat an off-screen exposition dump and then explains to Neil that once all the pieces of the artifact are combined, the plutonium-241 is one of 9 pieces of the artifact. It's sort of like Thanos' Infinity Stones, I guess. I haven't seen those movies, but that's why I assume
when
it
you
to
get
be.
them all...
Gotta catch them all.
Yeah.
Once all 9 pieces of the artifact are combined, it can not only invert the entropy of objects, but the entropy of the world, which would be the end of anything that's ever lived. Kat then says, including my son.
Yeah.
Like, fucking hell, like, selfish.
Yeah.
Like, but go off, I guess.
It can invert the entropy of the world.
If that happens...
Oh. End of play.
An end of play. Can you be a little more precise?
Everyone and everything that's ever lived, destroyed instantly. Precise enough?
Including my son.
Neil and the protagonist make pillow talk discussing paradoxes and the intricacies of time travel.
Yeah, the grandfather paradox.
Yeah, we arrive in Oslo and see the fight from earlier in reverse as...
Yes, so the plane crash scene, this is now playing out because they've travelled backwards through time, so they've now reached this point of the movie.
And we're seeing the Oslo heist just from a different perspective. So this is obviously the only time the free port is accessible, so they have to go back to this time. The forward protagonist beats his cloaked, inverted self up.
Yes, so you learn that the masked person from earlier in this fight scene
Is the protagonist. But he's obviously head to toe in like black gear, because if you touch yourself,
annihilation.
you then get annihilated. And he's wearing the mask because he needs the oxygen.
Yes.
So they've obviously, in these like suits, they've obviously got the, because sometimes they're wearing the like oxygen masks, and those black suits I think are just,
they're sort of like Dune suits.
yeah, whatever. We obviously get more cool reverse fighting, And this time we see it from the inverted protagonist
Yes.
point of view as opposed to the forward moving protagonist. The inverted protagonist makes it through the turnstile to uninvert and is discovered by Neil, who keeps his identity a secret so not as interfere
Yes.
with future. So that's why you said earlier, Neil realizes that it's the protagonist, so just leaves him alone. And that's why Neil says, don't shoot him
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's him.
Yeah.
He doesn't sort of tell him because he doesn't want to fuck
Yeah,
with
yeah.
anything. Neil then takes Kat through the turnstile, and we have our 3 leads moving forwards in time again. They escape in an ambulance and share a bromantic moment, reveling in their success before Kat rightfully shits all over it and is
Yeah.
like, we're fucked.
Yeah, yeah.
Policy is to suppress.
Whose policy?
Ours, my friend. We're the people saving the world from what might have been.
So, yeah, they just went back to Oslo because it was the only place that they could uninvert themselves, because turnstiles aren't easy to come by.
Mm.
As far as they know, there's 2, and the only other time they could access the Oslo one was a week ago
During
the
the
their
heist
last heist
that they created.
So they go back to the heist, backwards through time, and reinvert themselves, and now our 3 leads
Are moving forwards.
are moving forwards once again.
So the
But
protagonist-
from a week ago. They've travelled a week back in time, basically.
We're seeing this from the inverted protagonist point of view as opposed to the forward moving protagonist. So the protagonist catches up with Mommy Priya once again for more exposition, and
She comes to Oslo
yeah, but
because she is under the impression she's meeting Neil, because Neil knows Priya well.
yeah, but it's actually, as far as Priya knows, this is the first time they've met. But
Yeah, she
obviously
doesn't
to
know who the protagonist is because it's a week ago at this
Yeah.
point.
And we get a little Oppenheimer name drop.
Oh, yeah.
We learn that Sata's mission all along has been to find and reassemble the algorithm, and that the plutonium-241 was the missing piece. So he now has all of the pieces. We also learn a bit about the person who made the artifact. She killed herself because she realised what she'd done. Again, similar to the whole Oppenheimer thing. Chris Nolan is obviously very interested in nuclear warfare.
I think
and
he's really into the Manhattan Project.
yeah, and they talk about the Manhattan
Yeah.
Project as well.
You're familiar with the Manhattan Project? As they approached the first atomic test, Oppenheimer became concerned that the detonation might produce a chain reaction engulfing the world.
They went ahead anyway and got lucky.
Priya basically wanted all of the pieces together so that they could all be recovered at once. So she tells the 3 to travel back to the 14th, as this is when the algorithm will explode. So this is the siege at the Kiev Opera House and the Stalsk 12 explosion.
That
All-
Michael Crosby mentioned.
Yeah, so this all happens on the 14th.
Yes. So, do you want to catch up? So, Priya just mentions that the artifact is going to explode now. It's complete on the 14th, which is the same day as the Kiev Opera House
Yeah.
siege. And Michael Crosby, Michael Caine's character, mentioned that there was an explosion in Stars 12
Mhm.
on the same day.
Yeah.
They can only assume, putting 2 and 2 together,
Mm.
that this is going to go down. It's too much of a coincidence.
Yeah.
So they know it's now going to go down in the secret city in Russia.
Yeah, so the boys basically reveal to Kat that if Sata dies, the algorithm activates.
Yes.
Because she's like, are you going to kill him? Because rightfully so, she's been beaten up and like...
he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. She politely informs them that he is going to die anyway because he's planning on killing himself as he has terminal cancer. He has inoperable pancreatic cancer, which I'm assuming came from the radiation at Stalsk 12.
Yes.
It's never explicitly
but
stated,
you'd
but
think-
you know,
you can't deal with plutonium that long.
Exactly.
And your body live.
they deduce that Sata wants to find the best memory as his final moment. For some reason.
And his best memory is a holiday where they had an argument.
Well,
And it was okay before the argument, but still, this is such an assumption for me.
this
But-
whole scene is just leaps of judgment for me.
But they were on holiday on the 14th.
Yes.
So the
So
explosion,
the-
it makes sense that, I guess it was when we were on holiday and when we were at the sunset or whatever. That's when
Yeah.
he wants it to end.
You just have to accept it. It is what it
Yeah.
is. And this just so happens to be their Vietnamese holiday that occurs the same time as the opera siege and the explosion. She does say this is the last time I
time-
tried to love him or
Yes.
something. So whatever.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
You told me about a holiday where you let him feel loved.
Vietnam.
So now that they have Sator's plan figured out, everyone travels back once again to the 14th. Everyone arrives in Styles 12.
Because there is another turnstile at Styles 12.
Yes. Everyone arrives. Kat and the protagonist part ways, and he says that if she ever fears for her safety, to leave a message for posterity.
Yeah.
So Kat is now doing her own thing.
She's going to Vietnam.
Yes, to be there.
To basically stall the end of the world for as long as she can.
Yeah, so we'll get to that shortly. But Kat and the protagonist plot happen simultaneously at this point. We'll get to Kat later, but sticking with the protagonist for now, Team Tenet plan to execute a temporal pincer movement of their own and split into the red and blue teams. They figure this is the only way to... Their mission with this is basically to retrieve the artifact before Sator kills himself, explodes the algorithm using a drop switch,
Yeah.
which is his little heart monitor.
Yeah, as soon as he dies, the world ends.
Exactly.
Now with the dead man switch.
The fitness tracker he wears.
He's obsessive about his health.
It'll be linked to a switch. Probably a simple email burst that reveals the location of the dead drop. Set to fire. It's how it stops.
His death activates the algorithm. He dies, the world ends.
So this is all deduced in a very, very quick amount of time, but that's essentially what you need to know. And they're executing a temporal mincer movement to copy what Sator has been doing this whole time.
Yes. So blue team goes 1 hour earlier, does the mission.
Yeah.
And then an hour later, red team goes and does it again, but with this time inverted blue team helping them along the way.
Right. I didn't... that makes sense. I didn't realise that. Again, I don't understand all of this.
Yeah.
The red team basically moves forward, and that's got Ives and the protagonist, so Aaron Taylor-Johnson, and then the blue team moves backwards.
Which has Robert Pattinson.
Which has Rob Pattinson and Commander Wheeler.
Yes.
Played by Fiona Dourif, which we said earlier. Being real, I did not understand any of the mechanics of the operation, nor do I really care. I'm not a war nerd, I don't really give a shit. But what I do know is that...
They have to blow the tunnel.
Yeah, and the protagonist and Ives plan on separating from the red team to steal the algorithm.
Now, you want to be on the team that lifts the contents of the capsule?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's us. We're splitting you.
Yes, so basically, it's all a big distraction
Yeah.
for Ives and the protagonist to go down this tunnel, which they know that's where the bomb will be. And they've basically got to go and get the artifact and bring it back. But they're fighting Sator's men from the future.
Yeah. Both teams basically create their diversion, and the plan ensues with the protagonist and Neil arriving in the hypocenter, which is where the algorithm is being stored, with one of Sator's henchmen, Volkov.
He is a classic henchman.
He is.
He's
It's
like
very
something from
awesome.
Indiana Jones.
And a blue team Tenet corpse on the floor. While this is all happening, Kat goes to meet Sator on the yacht in Vietnam. She is basically acting as her past self, who has just left with Max.
After their argument.
Where he threatens her and says, "You'll never see your son again if you leave." So essentially we see it from future Kat's point of view, whereas before we've only seen the argument from her retelling the story in the past. And her mission is to keep Andre Sator alive long enough for the Tenet team to steal and dismantle the completed algorithm. This will basically be displayed to her by a flare set off by the guy from yesterday. I didn't mention him earlier, but he's the guy who was piloting...
Is he actually the guy from yesterday?
Yeah,
Oh.
the guy that was piloting the plane that they crash into the Oslo Freeport. I thought it would just make it too confusing as there's already so many fucking characters in play, but he's been in this whole movie. He's very good. Sator and Kat reunite and somewhat reconcile.
Yeah.
It's quite a sweet scene, I think. She is obviously playing her character who tried to love him one more time. And he obviously has the knowledge that he's going to kill himself.
Yeah.
So he's
being very nice.
Yeah, for a fucking change.
Max is on shore with Anna. We need time, just you and me, after what happened.
I was joking. It was a stupid joke.
You think I'm a terrible mother?
We both know my opinion of you is higher than yours of me.
And she basically convinces him not to take the cyanide pill before they can watch the sunset together. So he has the CIA-issued cyanide pill that right at the beginning of the movie, the protagonist kills himself with.
Yes.
The two plots basically re-intersect when Sator calls the protagonist and gives his bad guy monologue.
And this is when the protagonist is right at the heart of the action.
Yeah, so he's in the hypercenter with
Yes.
Ives and the corpse on the floor and the evil henchman who's just constantly failing to pull the thing that he needs to do so that the plot can happen. This is where we get a throwaway line to establish that the war between the future and the past is actually down to global warming.
How could they want to kill us?
Because their oceans rose and their rivers ran dry. Don't you see? They have no choice but to turn back.
Which is just annoying. It's literally in like one line of dialogue. But that's what you need to know is that...
That's the future's motive.
Yeah, so they basically...
They're like, oh, we're not going to live, so fuck you all.
Yeah, they're basically funding Sator to fuck with the past so that the planet...
The world never existed.
Yeah.
Because they're all going to die, so they're taking them with me. So he is a traitor to his generation, basically.
Each generation looks out for its own survival.
That's exactly what they're doing.
But not you. You're a traitor. You're an adept to all because you have no life of your own left.
Yeah, and he... Essentially what you need to know is that this whole war is because of our irresponsible choices when it comes to global warming.
And climate change.
And climate change. So he tells Volkov, the henchman, to shoot the protagonist before the blue corpse jumps up and blocks the shot.
Yes.
We then see him reverse run away. So we know that, well,
inverted.
we already knew that because he was blue, but whatever. Kat finally reveals after some time, and it's well done, this scene. I think it's very good. She finally reveals that she is not past Kat, because all this time he's been under the impression that
she's just regular Kat. She doesn't know anything about what's going on.
Yeah, and he's like, you don't understand anything. And she's like,
no, I don't.
I'm dumb. She reveals that she's not past Kat and shoots Sator.
Yeah.
She then proceeds to unceremoniously push him off the side of the boat, and he fucking hits his head on the banister on the way down.
You know that Titanic where the boat smashes?
But it's the ending that fucking piece of shit deserves. So it's quite satisfying. But he basically says during this scene that bringing a kid into a world that he knew was gonna explode is his greatest sin or something. So
I think your greatest sin is just ending the world.
Being awful. Simultaneously, so while this is all happening, back in Stalsk 12, a chain falls from the sky as the timer to detonation runs out. The protagonist and Ives secure the algorithm as Neil pulls them from his truck just as the hypocenter detonates.
Yes.
Now, this is the part when I was rewatching the movie that I was just like skipping the fighting. I didn't care. And when I'm 2 hours into the movie, you're asking a lot for me to... Oh, it's just people shooting each other. And I mean, it is cool. You get a lot of reverse stuff. But anyway... Kat hides the evidence and dives off the yacht just as post-Kat and Max return.
Yeah, so the woman she saw at the start that she envied her freedom was, in fact, herself.
She finally has the freedom that she was so
Which is
envious of.
I think that the character's great.
It is, I agree. But I do just wish that it was a bit less violent towards her. But she obviously kills him before the guy has set the flare off.
But that's how much faith she has in Tenet.
Yes.
And the protagonist and Neil.
And I think she just kind of wanted to kill him.
But I think, honestly, she's like, oh no, they probably would have done it.
She says in the boat, did it work? I knew you'd make it work, sort of thing.
Because I don't think she's that selfish that she'd kill him.
No, I don't think so either.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't let him die thinking you'd run. I knew you'd find a way. Wait, you found a way. We're okay, right?
Yeah, found a way. Be safe.
So back in Stalsk 12, the protagonist, Neil, and Ives have succeeded in their mission. They break up the algorithm into 3 separate parts and say that they're going to separate them, go back in time,
hide them,
and
then kill themselves.
Just as Neil leaves, the protagonist notices the same tag that was on the blue team corpse in the hypocenter, as well as the one that saved his life in the Kiev Opera House.
Yes.
So he realizes that Neil saved his life in Stalsk 12 and also in the opera. He was the one that shot the inverted bullet that saved his life. The protagonist asked Neil who recruited him to Tenet, which he asked him earlier in the film, and he's just
sorry,
sort of...
this is after the fact that Neil is going to his death.
See, I still don't understand this.
Because Neil gets shot, he takes a bullet for the protagonist.
Yeah.
And dies.
But he reinverts himself so many times.
For the mission. He knows he's going to his death at that point.
You're really going back in.
I'm the only one who could have got that door open in time, right, Ives? I don't know any locksmiths as good as you.
See? It's me in there again. Weaving another pass in the fabric of this mission.
Well, yeah. So the protagonist asks Neil who recruited him, to which he responds that it was the protagonist himself that recruited him, and that they have shared what is for Neil a beautiful past, but for the protagonist a beautiful future. So this is the end of Neil's story, whereas this is just the beginning of the protagonist.
He says to the
story.
protagonist, for me, this is the end of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah. You've known me for years.
For me, I think this is the end of a beautiful friendship.
I know I laughed about them flirting, but it's a genuinely really touching moment.
They have such great chemistry.
They have amazing chemistry. The film concludes with Kat and her Birkin spotting a suspicious vehicle on her school run.
Yeah.
She leaves a message with her location and time for posterity.
How did you...
Cannon Place, 3 o'clock. Probably nothing.
Posterity.
Cannon Place, 3 o'clock. Probably nothing.
I told you you'd have to start looking differently at the world.
We then see the protagonist enter the car and gives a badass speech to prove what he's learned throughout the course of this fucking 2.5 hour shit show, and shoots Priya,
Priya was
up...
going to kill her to tie up all loose ends, but she got tied up instead.
Exactly. She was the final loose end. Written and directed by Christopher Nolan.
I have to tie up the loose ends.
That was never your job.
Then whose was it?
Mine. I realized I wasn't working for you. We've both been working for me. I'm the protagonist.
Then you'd better tie up those loose ends.
And it does that classic Nolan thing at the end where it's like, oh, the score's getting bigger, the score's getting bigger. And at any point, I could watch 2 hours of someone shitting and then a little Christopher Nolan montage at the end where they're tying up loose ends. I'm like, best movie ever. Best movie ever. I love it. I love the end of a Christopher Nolan movie. There's very little satisfying.
Yeah.
But, God damn, what the fuck. Anyway, now we've done the plot. Should we get into the podcast? Should we do the podcast now? What did you think of Tenet?
I really hope that my plot summary was A, accurate, B, comprehensive, and C, comprehensible.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at, for full disclosure, we have been recording for an hour and a half now, and when it comes to the edit, we usually try and edit and get it down to an hour.
This ain't gonna be the case, unfortunately.
Well, you'll know at this point. Check your runtime on whatever service you listen to and see how much we cut out, because we will be cutting some of that out.
We
'Cause
will.
A lot of it was us arguing.
Yeah, because it's just like, I don't fucking... You can't pick up on everything.
No, you
I will
can't.
say that. I've tried my best to make an understandable... And there's so much stuff that I cut out.
The very frustrating thing about this movie is, with very minimal changes, a couple of extra lines, another go at the screenplay, not to tell Chris Nolan how to write movies, but I think if there was just dumbed it down by 5%, it would be amazing.
It's too complicated for its own good.
Yeah,
and
I genuinely think it'd be a really enjoyable film if there was a bit more exposition on... not even exposition, there's too much. If the story just sacrificed some of its thing.
It sacrifices its enjoyment for science.
Yeah,
and
which Interstellar doesn't do, which Inception doesn't do.
Yeah.
Which Oppenheimer doesn't do.
Yeah, it's too complicated to be a film. It just is. There's no way around it. It is too difficult to understand. The sound mixing is horrible.
It is really bad.
Documents are vulnerable to fire? Absolutely. I was trying to say water damage for the sprinkler system. We don't use sprinklers.
I literally couldn't watch it without subtitles. I have no idea how people watched this in the cinema.
And also, for the people who are like, because a lot of criticisms came out when this came out on VOD, people being like, and same with Oppenheimer to a lesser degree, because I generally do think, but people are like, oh, bro, get a better sound system. It's like, well, no, I saw it in 2 different cinemas, and both times it was really difficult to hear.
And they deliver exposition so quickly, and they're not always speaking clearly. Like, there was one line that I had to re-listen to 3 times. I couldn't hear it. I had to go and download the subtitles so that
Yeah.
I could actually understand it. It asks so much of its audience.
Yeah.
And too much, I think.
Yeah.
You cannot have a successful film that, is incomprehensible. It's just not. I think it's fascinating. I think the amount of work and time and effort and money and just brain power that went
Yeah.
into this is truly astounding. I
It
don't
really
think it's a good
is.
film, though. Just in the sense where it's like a film is made to be enjoyable.
Yes, it's anti-film.
It is. And I mean, this movie.
I'm trying to think of other complicated, like Mulholland Drive or Donnie Darko or...
This is too bogged down in science. I think
Yeah.
that's the issue, where it's like, and we said this sort of when we've been discussing this movie a lot
I
because
haven't got this movie out of my fucking
no,
head all
I know,
week.
and I can't wait to never think about it again. But we were saying that, even if you don't fully understand Inception, you understand the concept of what a dream is,
Yeah.
and you understand the concept, or you maybe even heard the word of the subconscious, right?
Yeah.
Everyone on some level understands that there are multiple layers to our brains and our dreams. That is the crux of Inception.
And you can do it in an elevator pitch, which is like a team of people hijack people's dreams to implant memories in their implant ideas in their subconscious.
What is the short summary of this movie?
Russian oligarch who who's talks to the future and starts building a bomb to destroy the world, but also from the future is a team of people trying to stop him. But that doesn't even cover it at all.
No, and it's like you can't boil this down to its essence, and I think
No.
that's the issue with
Yeah.
this movie. I mean, it's got a 7.3 on IMDb, a 69% Rotten Tomatoes, and Metascore.
This is a movie where it's very difficult to... As far as filmmaking goes, technically it's flawless.
Yeah.
Other than the sound, I will say. Again, I don't want to be gaslit by this movie into thinking I'm dumb.
I hate that. That is a pet peeve of mine, where I'm like, no, your movie is incomprehensible. I don't like being made to feel stupid.
Yeah.
And there are things that, yes, I definitely should have picked up on. But when I say the exposition is relentless,
Yeah, it
is. Every single line is important.
You were trying to take notes in our first screening just because we knew we were covering it on the pod, and I was like having to pause it and be like, "You need to watch this," and it's like every
You cannot
line.
miss a beat.
No.
And like the crux of this whole war is the fact that it's global warming, right?
Yeah.
It's one line of dialogue.
No, I think it's irrelevant. The motive's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant, but it is the whole reason this war is taking place is because of global warming, and it is literally, he says, the oceans were rising and the rivers were drying up or something like
Yeah.
that, and that is the justification for the entire war. And it's like, what, in one line of dialogue?
Yeah. There's not a lot of investigating going on for a spy movie. It's more just things happen to people.
It's very annoying in the sense of like everyone just understands everything
That's what I mean.
immediately.
I don't
It's
feel like
just
we
irritating.
learn things at the same time as the protagonist. I feel like we're always playing catch up, and he's never playing catch up.
But the issue is you like the reveal that he's behind it all and everything like
Yeah.
that. It's just like, well,
That's a cool idea, but
it's
it's,
a bit
irrelevant.
of a cop out.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, he's actually the one controlling Priya. It's like,
I like it just 'cause it's a cool twist, but it's pretty inconsequential to the plot itself.
yeah, I think it's very well made, and I admire Christopher Nolan for making it. And I think the performances are excellent. I think the leads are fantastic. All four of them, I think, are so good. They're all so charismatic. They're so charming. Kenneth Branagh is so evil. He does such a good job at, like, that man is scary.
Yeah, I think he is scary. He's got a bit of that, like, he looks like coke bloated, which I think is always scary.
Yeah. It's so bizarre. So many weird choices.
Do you think Neil is Max?
No.
There's a fan theory that Neil Patterson's character is Sator and
Cat's
Cat's kid from the future or whatever.
No, I don't. I
don't think
I think
so
it's
either.
silly. I mean, it's kind of cool, but like no. And again, like genuinely, these 2 days of research is the tip of the iceberg.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I said to you like 10 minutes before we were recording, I was like, what is the reason that the CIA are in this thing?
Yeah, at the Opera House.
And then it's like, oh, okay, there's a 20,000 word explanation of this. It's like, just tell me why they're there. What in simple, and it's just
Yeah.
like every single thing is like this huge backstory.
I think a lot of people didn't understand a lot of it until the script came out, like the script
I didn't
itself.
understand a lot of it until I rewatched it 3 times,
Yeah.
did 20 hours of like
Yeah.
I was so lost. I didn't understand why anything was happening.
See, again, it's not like Donnie Darko where one thing's click. If you know what the tangent universe is, the whole film makes sense. Whereas there's no key.
No.
there. There's nothing that you can unlock and it goes,
Cipher.
whoa, what
Yeah.
the hell? This all makes sense to me now. And it's not like oh my God, how did I miss that? How did I miss that on rewatch? No.
And it's just like I understand
It's like, oh, okay. That's if you read about Tenet, you go, oh, yeah, well, I guess that makes
how
sense.
was I meant to know?
Yeah, all right.
I think it's one of those things where I understand that everything has to be shot, reverse shot, because there's so much dialogue.
Yeah.
But it's just like, but I don't, it's one character talking, the other character replies, another character says something, the other character replies.
Well, that
It's
is
just
very
like-
Chris Nolan.
It is, but I'm not really a Chris Nolan fan generally.
Yeah, honestly, I do like his weird autistic style of filmmaking. I can't
Yeah,
lie. It's so clinical.
Yeah.
It's so clinical.
He's not very good at writing, like,
Oh man, we're gonna rewatch the Batman movies as well, and we can't wait.
yeah.
Well, I
but,
can't wait. I haven't
Oh.
watched Dark Knight Rises in years, and I remember not liking that movie.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm glad we covered this.
Yeah, again, sorry, this is a really weird podcast to do in retrospect after recording it.
It's not very fun, I will say that. I'm not feeling like
I'm not feeling like you're gonna have a world, especially if you haven't seen Tenet.
if you haven't seen Tenet, I would recommend listening to this and then going and watching the movie.
Yeah. I recommend going to watch the movie if you're listening now. No one has made it to this point in the podcast. Everyone's turned off. But if you're still here, go watch Tenet if you haven't already.
Listen to this, and then even if you're mildly interested in Tenet, go and watch it and see if you can piece together the plot having listened to this,
Yeah.
because it's a fucking... my brain hurts.
Yeah, so does mine.
So
I need to go watch Family Guy.
I'm gonna wrap this up because
Yeah. What are we doing next week?
we've got a lot of new... The Bike Riders came out this weekend. The
Yeah.
Exorcism movie with Russell Crowe came out this weekend. So might do a new one, might do an old one.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Well, it's not going to be 2.5 hours long. I'm going to tell you that for fucking free.
I'm never doing one of these movies again.
Yeah.
I hope this very boring episode was somewhat enjoyable.
This movie was brought to you by Plutonium 241.
Nuclear fission, guys.
Anyway.
Over and out. Thank you for
We
listening
live in a
as
twilight
always.
world.
No friends at dusk.
See you on the other side, fellas. Or maybe this is me from the future
In
coming
the
and recording
past.
the podcast.
See you last week.
See you last week, everyone.
Bye.
Ta-ra.
Ready, set, one foot. Leg is no more.
You don't give a better